Blackhawk families, this is Mrs. Selliff here with our daily STEAM challenge. Today for our challenge we are doing a science experiment. We will also use some math to collect data. You will need a measuring tool, some paper, about 5 objects, and your paper airplane from yesterday. Some tape would also be handy. If you don't have a tape measure or a ruler at home, don't worry, you can still do this activity. You can just use what's called a non-standard unit of measurement. Some examples include a shoe, a book, or a notebook. I'll go into more detail about how to use a non-standard unit of measure later. I happen to have a ruler and a tape measure at home, so I'll show you how to use both. Our science experiment is to collect data to see how far our airplanes can fly. We will be using math to collect data for our science experiment. The first thing we need to do is get something to write with and our paper to create a data table. Here's my paper. Here's my example. Where did it go? This is my example. There we go, now you can read it. If you would like to copy the title onto your data table, go ahead and pause your video now so that you can do that. I used a ruler to just do my table, so you can do that as well. Or you could actually use the side of your notebook to draw the straight lines. This is a table, everybody. A table is just a way to collect data. Okay, so the title, you should always have a title when you collect data. Mine is how far did my paper airplane fly? So if you wanted to do your own title, it could be airplane flights in inches or something, whatever you decide to measure. I'm probably going to use feet to do my measurement. So it is up to you though, what you want to do. If you happen to have a yardstick, you could measure in yards and feet and inches, however you want to do it. And again, if you don't have a standard unit of measure like a ruler at home, you can write down that you're measuring in shoes or whatever you happen to be measuring in. And don't worry, I'll explain all that later. So for now, just pause the video and create a table that looks like this with a piece of paper. For the next part of our activity, you will need to find a place in your house that has probably the longest distance that you can find. For me, that is upstairs. If I start in my living room, and then I will try and throw my paper airplane down the hallway to see how far I can go. This will look different for each of you based on the layout of your house, but basically what you're looking for is a nice open space where you can throw your paper airplane to see how far it can fly. This is where you will need your random objects. I'll be using 5 markers to mark my flight attempts. I would suggest that you have at least 5 because that'll give us a good range of data. Some tape would also be really handy right now because we need to mark where we will start when we throw our paper airplane, and we want to start at the same place every single time so that our data will be as accurate as possible. If you don't have tape, you can put down anything you want to mark where you will be starting. I'm going to use this placemat. I'll put it down on the floor to show where I should stand every time I throw my paper airplane. I'll just walk you through the experiment I did. Here's the placemat that I was going to start on, and this is me putting down my markers for each of the flight attempts that I did with my paper airplane. I decided to do 5 markers so I could get a really nice, good range of data, and I'm putting the markers down exactly where the airplane lands before I pick the airplane up to do another attempt. And my airplane went the farthest that last time. Okay, so now I'm ready to start measuring. The first thing I'm going to do is use the tape measurer. That is the easiest way. You just have to put the tape measure out, and I started with the top of the tape measure back where I started my flights, back where I was standing. And then I'm getting a piece of paper and something to write with right now so I can just write down the numbers that I get. So I'm using the inches side of the tape measure, and I'm just writing down how many inches it was. And it was really easy when the airplane kind of landed close to my tape measure, but when it was far away, I had to kind of figure out. So I just sort of decided to move it closer to my tape measure so that I could know how far away it was. It was a little tricky. And I'm stretching out my tape measure to finish my last measurement where my paper plane went the farthest. And now I'm going to show you how to use a ruler. It's a little trickier with a ruler. You have to count as you go how many feet you get. Each ruler is 1 foot, and I just kind of inched along. And when I got to my first marker, I wrote down how many feet I had and how many more inches it was. And I did that for every marker. And so I had to keep track of how many feet the last one was as I was going. It was not easy. So if you feel like you need to measure again, you can do that. Don't pick up your markers until you're all done. So then I finish with my ruler, writing down how many feet and inches I had. And the last thing I did, I decided to measure with my husband's shoe. So the closest accuracy you can get with a shoe is it's either 1 shoe or it's 1.5 shoes. And hopefully you're noticing I'm putting my finger down at the top of the shoe before I move the shoe again, and I'm putting the shoe down. So the end of the shoe is where my finger is. And so if it's halfway between the top and the bottom of my shoe, I'm just writing down that it's half a shoe. I'm not being too careful with my measurements when I use the shoe. I'm just putting down about where the marker was. So sometimes in math, you sort of round or you estimate. So here is the data I collected. I'm going to just show you very close up how I used the ruler first. So just pretend that my ruler was right there and I'm inching along. I'm putting the top of the ruler where my finger is, the bottom of my ruler where the finger still is, so that I can see how many inches. And I'm just matching up the top of the marker with the ruler to see how many inches. And as I go, I have to count how many feet I already have plus how many more inches it is. And so it's really hard to be accurate, but you just do the best you can. Here's the shoe. So I only try to get 1 or a half shoe. So you can see where the marker is landing here. It is halfway between the top and the bottom of the shoe. So that's just 1.5 shoes. This one is really close to the top. So I just decided to say that's 1 whole shoe. And then this one was really close to the top of the shoe. But I just decided, oh, it's closer to half a shoe. So now I have to do my table. I'm going to use the data table to do another math activity later, so I want to save it. For now, I'll just put my data into my table. If you wrote down your measurements onto your table as you were collecting your data, then you don't have to do this step because you already have your table finished. I decided to write down the measurements I got with the ruler. That was feet and inches. So I labeled my numbers as I added them to my table. And that is the end of this activity for now. Please keep your data, everyone. For grades 3, 4, and 5, we will be doing some more math with this. And with kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade, we will just have some conversations about our data. So I will make 2 different videos for next week when we do math again. The M in STEAM stands for math. For now, we are done. Thanks for taking the time to test those paper airplanes for me. I'd love to know if you did this activity and how far your paper airplanes went. So please go back to Class Dojo Story and find my post about this video and let me know. My best test attempt was 159 inches. How far did your paper plane go? Bye, everybody.